Okay, so take a look at this. Raiders quarterback and noted Star Wars fan Fernando Mendoza was gifted a jersey, the Mandalorian, written on the back. They've already been having a lot of fun with that. And by the way, gotta plug it, Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and Grogu is in theaters Friday. No doubt this young man will be watching it right away. All right, new on NFL Live, Raiders head coach Clint Kubiak spoke today about how impressed he's been with The Mandalorian.
As advertised, he is not disappointed. He's working his tail off. It's very important to him. Asks a lot of great questions. When he gets on the field, he's no BS. He's all ball.
All right, let's go to Raiders reporter Ryan McFadden, who joins us now. Ryan, what more can you tell us about how the Raiders are handling this quarterback room with Mendoza and Kirk Cousins?
Raiders coach Clint Kubiak didn't provide a specific timeline for when he would like to decide if Kirk Cousins or Fernando Mendoza will be the starting quarterback. He added that answer will reveal itself during training camp. On top of that, he wants his players to ultimately decide if the team should start the 15-year-old veteran or this year's #1 overall pick. During practice, Mendoza worked with the third team, while Cousins received most of the first team reps, given his experience and familiarity with the offense. When asked, will it be a sign of progress for Mendoza, Kubiak had a very direct answer: completions, getting the ball to the team's playmakers.
Well, that sounds simple enough. So much turnover for this franchise, including interim coaches Clint Kubiak. He's the Raiders' 6th head coach in the last 6 seasons. It was a busy offseason there in Vegas. In addition to Mendoza and Cousins, they also signed center Tyler Linderbaum, and they add potential starters to the defense, including linebackers Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean. Lewis, so what? You have analyzed Mendoza every which way. From what you've seen, how quickly do you think he could start?
I would say, Hannah, within that first quarter of the season, those first 4 to 5 games, I think you could see him in there. I think a lot of this obviously is going to depend upon his progression, which he has been really at work on that since January. I mean, he's been working on West Coast principles since the offseason began, because he kind of assumed, or really had an inkling that he was going to be the #1 overall pick with the Raiders. So he's probably way ahead of the curve already. We'll see how he looks during preseason games and in joint practices and such. But I think he's going to put the pressure on right away. The one thing I do know about him and talking to him and talking to the coaches out there in Indiana is, look, his dedication to the process, and I know that sounds like, very typical, standard speak, but his dedication is very, very, very real. His mental horsepower is very real. His physical skill is very real. You can see they've already chronicled some of the changes that he's made as far as his mechanics, his throwing motion, how much it looks very Tom Brady-esque already. He's taking to all the inputs that he's getting, and he's applying them on the field. And I think, quite honestly, look, this is going to be one of those deals where Clint Kubiak's going to have to sit there and go, okay, look, how long do we sit and wait with this guy? Do we go ahead and throw him in there or don't we? I mean, is it just time to play him or isn't it? It's a great problem to have, but I think he's going to put the pressure on Kirk right from the get-go. He just is, because he's a unique kid. There's a reason why you go from Cal to Indiana, go 15-0, and then win the Heisman Trophy, sweep all the awards, and become the #1 pick. It isn't luck. It's because you've got it. Simple as that.
As unique as he is, Lewis, and I do agree with you, especially with how he processes information, how he understands the offense and everything he's been working on. I just remember in the back of my mind listening to Tom Brady, who's basically kind of calling the shots out there and say, hey, rookie quarterbacks should sit and learn. That's what Brady said. And the fact that Brady said that, I heard him say it with my own ears, I think he's going to sit longer than he's going to play. I think there's a reason you go out and spend the money they spend on Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk is going to start the season, and it wouldn't surprise me if Kirk Cousins plays 7, 8, 9 games. I do think Fernando Mendoza plays at some point during the season, but I think the overwhelming share of the reps and the games will be played by Kirk Cousins. Let's understand this. The biggest thing they have to do is not see whether this guy can play. I think they have an idea that he can play. Otherwise, they wouldn't have drafted him #1 overall. What they have to do is bring him along. That way, once he does get on the field, he can show his talent. Just think about the best quarterback in our game, what they did with Patrick Mahomes. He said every game except one. He played one game, then the next season he came in and he took over. He doesn't have to play a lot, but I do think he will play this season. But Kirk Cousins is going to take the lion's share of the reps, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you look at their schedule, their first 7 games are against playoff teams, Lewis. Continue.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I know this. Down in Kansas City, they had to literally tie their hands together and put tape on their mouth in order to not put Patrick in there that year. And the reason why was, from the very first practice that he had that offseason, he was tearing it up. And Brett Veach was like, oh my goodness, look at what we had. What also helped was the fact that they were winning football games and Alex Smith had the best season of his career. Right. So I think that will allow, Clint Kubiak and company to kind of keep him on the bench if Kirk is playing that way and this team is kind of ascending and kind of doing the things it needs to do. But otherwise, I agree with you, man. I agree with you in terms of Booger as far as what Tom Brady has said, and I'm not going to go against that in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying, one, in Kansas City, it took everything they had to keep Patrick off the field. And number two, Fernando's the number 1 overall pick, dude. I'm putting my money on seeing him this year earlier than maybe we think.
I thought it was so interesting what we just heard in that report that Kubiak said the players are going to decide. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But Kubiak had a lot of interesting things to say. He also talked about his star tight end, Brock Bowers. Here it is.
He's kind of a football robot in a good way. He's a football robot from heaven. He's a Cadillac out there. We got to get the most out of Brock.
All right, football robot. Okay, wow, Kubiak's saying all sorts of stuff. Lewis, what do you make of this team overall?
I love everything that they've done this offseason, Hannah. I really do. I think John Spytek in his scouting department, along with the front office higher-ups like Tom and whoever else is involved in decision-making, and then Clint, and I got a chance to talk to Clint out at Indiana's Pro Day. I think they've nailed this thing. They have really tried to fortify this offensive line, Tyler Linderbaum being the centerpiece. They got a 1-2 punch at running back right now, with Ashton and then drafting Mike Washington Jr. out of Arkansas. That's as big and physical as anybody's in the NFL. They have a monster at tight end that is going to be a problem. Defensively, they've added a lot of firepower. I think the Raiders can surprise people this year. I really do.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Nearly a third of the league, by the way, has a new head coach after there were 10 teams that made changes in the offseason. That's tied for the most all time. That includes 3 new head coaches in the AFC North alone. Mike McCarthy with the Steelers, obviously, Todd Monken in Cleveland, and Jesse Minter taking over the Ravens. And in Baltimore, apparently Minter's made an impression in the locker room. This is Derrick Henry describing the energy from his new head coach.
The guy that's hungry, somebody that wanted this opportunity and presented himself. He took advantage of it, and excited to be here, excited to get to work, put the work in, so we get the results we want.
Hey, Booger, when you hear that from Derrick Henry, what do you think about the tone that Minter's setting?
I think it's a great tone because anytime you get new leadership in, you have to put your imprint on the team. And I think that's what you see from Jesse Minter. We all understand he's a hardball disciple being out there with Jim, but I think he's going to come at it from a defensive background. And anytime you have a team like Baltimore that was under John Harbaugh for 18, 19 years, you need a new speech at the beginning of the meeting. You need a new enthusiasm on the practice field, and you need a new demeanor. And I think Jesse Minter is going to bring that defensive mentality to the Baltimore Ravens. I think they'll be tougher. I think they'll be more physical under Jesse Minter.
Well, they definitely need to have a better pass rush. They're at the Colts in week 1, home for the Saints in week 2, Cowboys in Brazil week 3. Moving on to Miami, where new head coach Jeff Hafley steps into a very tough spot in year 1 after the decision to trade wideout Jalen Waddle back in March. And yesterday, the Finns' new quarterback, Malik Willis, was asked about it.
It was unfortunate, for sure, to say the least. That's a really good player, and I would have loved to play with him, but that's above my pay grade, brother. Out of my hands.
Man, I love his honesty there. Hearing that, how important is it going to be for these wideouts to hit early there in Miami?
It's going to be huge. They drafted 3 of them. They got 3 youngsters, and these guys are absolutely fantastic. And, when you look at there, Kevin Coleman from Missouri, who is a slot guy who can go inside and outside. Caleb Douglas on the outside, the 3rd rounder out of Texas Tech who's got range, long and lanky. Chris Bell, the third rounder out of Louisville, who is coming off of an ACL injury. We don't know when he's going to be available. I don't know if he'll be available at the beginning of the year. But those three guys really had to complement one another in terms of skill set. You've got big size. You got big speed when you're talking about Chris Bell, Caleb Douglas, catch radius, Kevin Coleman, lots of run after the catch. If they hit on those three, Malik Willis has some young guys that he can really grow with.
Yeah, can't wait to see what he can potentially show. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, Kevin Stefanski is back in familiar territory, managing a quarterback room, of course. Tua Tagovailoa, former Miami, now looking